For years, I thought waking up multiple times a night to use the bathroom was just part of getting older. I brushed it off as something normal, even inevitable. But what began as a minor inconvenience slowly morphed into something that affected my entire life. I started each day feeling groggy and unrested. My focus at work declined. I stopped enjoying evening activities because I knew the night ahead would be broken and frustrating. What's more, I felt like no one was talking about it. And when I searched for answers, all I found were temporary fixes that didn't address the real issue. Here's the thing most people don't realize. Nocturia, the condition of waking up frequently to urinate during the night, isn't just a minor nuisance. Left unchecked, it can quietly unravel your health. Poor sleep has been linked to a weakened immune system, impaired memory, and even higher risks for metabolic disorders. And yet, so many of us live with it as if it's just part of life. But what shocked me the most was discovering that one of my nightly habits, something I believed was harmless, even healthy, was actually the root cause of my sleepless nights. That's when everything changed. And before we dive into the details, I want to make something clear. Stick with me until the very end because I'm going to share a little-known tip that completely turned things around for me. It's not only natural, but it's something you won't hear about in most mainstream advice. And it might just be the key to ending your own nighttime disruptions for good. Now, let me ask you this. Have you ever finished your evening routine thinking you were setting yourself up for a restful night, only to wake up hours later, again and again, walking that same tired path to the bathroom? I was in that exact loop, night after night. And what made it worse was the belief that I was doing everything right. I wasn't chugging water before bed. I wasn't taking caffeine late in the day. I wasn't on any medication that listed frequent urination as a side effect. And yet, there I was, restless, exhausted, and confused. So I started digging. I read clinical studies, spoke with health professionals, and tried dozens of small lifestyle changes. Some helped a bit, others made no difference. But one discovery stood out among the rest. A quiet pattern hidden in my routine that was triggering a chain reaction in my body each night. It had nothing to do with my bladder, and everything to do with how my body was processing the things I thought were healthy. And the consequences go far beyond sleep disruption. When your body is pulled out of deep sleep repeatedly, it never gets the chance to reset and restore. Hormones like melatonin and vasopressin, which help regulate sleep and reduce urine production at night, get thrown out of sync. Over time, this imbalance can contribute to issues like elevated blood pressure, blood sugar instability, and even increased fall risk in older adults, all because of a cycle that could have been prevented. What I stopped doing before bed wasn't obvious at first, and it certainly wasn't something any doctor had warned me about. But when I made this one change, my nights transformed. And the best part? It was easy, free, and completely natural. But before we get to that, let me assure you, this isn't about taking pills or giving up the foods you love. It's about understanding how small choices impact our systems in big ways, and how tweaking just one of them can make all the difference. Because when we ignore the signals our bodies are sending, we're not just sacrificing sleep. We're interfering with the very systems that protect our long-term health. That's why it's so important to follow every step carefully. Even a small misstep, like mistiming a meal or choosing the wrong bedtime snack, could mean the difference between deep, restorative rest and another restless night. In a moment, I'm going to tell you what food combo at dinner could be quietly disrupting your nights, even if you think it's healthy. This next step is one of the most important in this entire process. Overlooking it won't just slow your progress, it could cause effects you weren't expecting, especially if you're already struggling with other health issues. And while it's a simple change, it carries powerful results when done correctly. I never imagined that what I put on my dinner plate could be playing a hidden role in my nightly trips to the bathroom. After making that first change in my nighttime routine, I saw some improvement. But things really began to shift when I started paying closer attention to what and how I was eating in the evening. It all started with a meal that seemed innocent enough: grilled chicken, a little rice, some steamed veggies, and a splash of soy sauce. It felt light, balanced, even healthy. But that night, I was up twice, maybe 3 times, feeling that same old urgency. That's when I decided to look beyond just portion size or hydration. I dove into the specifics of food content, especially sodium. What I learned shocked me. Many seemingly healthy meals, especially those that include sauces, dressings, or pre-seasoned ingredients, are loaded with hidden salt. In fact, some condiments contain more sodium in a single tablespoon than an entire bag of chips. And when your body takes in excess sodium late in the day, it has to regulate it. One way it does this is by pulling water into the bloodstream and increasing urine production, often right around the time you're trying to sleep. But it wasn't just salt. I found that certain foods actually stimulate the bladder or act as natural diuretics. Processed meats like turkey slices, aged cheeses, tomato-based sauces, and even spicy dishes can irritate the bladder lining or make the kidneys work harder. Even some seemingly harmless ingredients, like garlic powder blends or bouillon cubes, contain compounds that make your body hold and then rapidly release fluids. When consumed late in the day, these foods prime your body for a restless night. The American dinner table, with its love for big flavors and convenience, often relies heavily on these ingredients. And while they make meals taste great, they may be silently hijacking your sleep. The real irony? Many of the meals I thought were helping my health, low-calorie, lean protein, low-fat, were actually designed in a way that increased nighttime urination. Once I began making strategic changes, the results were quick. I reduced my sodium intake after 6 p.m., swapped store-bought sauces for homemade versions using fresh herbs, and began choosing more bladder-friendly vegetables like carrots, cucumbers, and zucchini. I also became mindful of meal timing. Eating dinner at least 3 hours before bed gave my body the time it needed to process and stabilize. One unexpected bonus? My digestion improved. I no longer went to bed feeling heavy or bloated. My sleep deepened, and those dreaded nighttime wake-ups became increasingly rare. It's worth noting that this doesn't mean you have to eat bland meals or give up your favorite dishes. It's more about knowing what's in your food and when you're eating it. Small adjustments, like using lemon juice instead of soy sauce or adding herbs for flavor instead of pre-mixed seasoning packets, can have a surprising impact. Our bodies are constantly communicating with us. When we ignore those signals, whether it's through persistent nighttime urination or poor quality sleep, we risk missing the bigger picture of what our health truly needs. So if you're someone who enjoys a flavorful dinner, but also craves uninterrupted sleep, this is your wake-up call. It's not just about cutting salt. It's about becoming aware of the ingredients that quietly influence your body's nighttime rhythms. And here's the kicker. Even healthy foods can have unintended consequences when eaten at the wrong time or in the wrong combination. That's why it's so important to understand the role of food timing and content in this process. It's not about restriction. It's about alignment, giving your body what it needs when it needs it. The next step I'll share has nothing to do with food, but it might be even more critical. In fact, it was the missing piece I didn't even know I needed. Ignoring it won't just delay your progress, it could quietly be keeping your body in a nightly state of imbalance that no diet alone can fix. Even after adjusting my evening meals and seeing noticeable improvements, there was still a lingering issue. Some nights were better than others, but I wasn't yet free from those unwanted bathroom interruptions. That's when I turned my attention to what I was drinking, and more importantly, when I was drinking it. I thought I had already covered this part. I wasn't chugging water before bed, I wasn't drinking coffee after dinner, and I'd even cut out wine during the week. But something still wasn't right. One evening, out of habit, I grabbed a sugar-free flavored water to sip on while reading. It's marketed as healthy, 0 calories, with added vitamins, the kind you find in nearly every American fridge. It tasted great, seemed harmless, and I didn't think twice about it. That night, I was up 3 times. It felt like a step backward, and that's when it hit me. I had been focusing on hydration, but not the contents of what I was drinking. What many people don't realize is that artificial sweeteners, particularly sucralose and aspartame, are known bladder irritants. They don't affect everyone the same way, but for those sensitive to them, the effect can be surprisingly strong. These sweeteners can trigger overactivity in the bladder muscles, which leads to more frequent urges, especially at night, when the body's ability to manage fluids is already shifting. And these compounds aren't just found in diet sodas. They're in energy drinks, flavored waters, protein shakes, and even some electrolyte mixes. All things I had considered part of a healthy lifestyle. Even natural diuretics were sneaking into my routine. I was in the habit of drinking herbal teas in the evening to wind down, things like green tea, hibiscus, and dandelion blends. But I hadn't realized these are all mild diuretics. In other words, they encourage the kidneys to flush out water. Great for detoxing maybe, but not ideal before bed. Hydration is crucial for overall health, but timing is just as important as quantity. What helped me most was setting a hydration cutoff time. For me, that's 7:30 p.m. I still drink plenty of water throughout the day, but I taper off in the early evening and avoid any drinks after that time unless absolutely necessary. When I'm thirsty later on, I take just a few sips, enough to satisfy without overloading my system. Another change I made was replacing evening teas with calming, bladder-friendly options. Chamomile, marshmallow root, and roasted barley tea became my go-to choices. These not only helped me relax, but also reduced irritation and supported restful sleep. The real game changer, though, was learning to read labels more carefully. It's amazing how many products labeled as healthy or hydrating are filled with hidden triggers. Once I became more aware of this, I began choosing beverages based on both their ingredients and their effects on my body. This might sound simple, but the impact was significant. The number of nightly bathroom trips dropped noticeably. My sleep became deeper, more restorative, and I woke up feeling genuinely refreshed. It wasn't about dehydration. It was about understanding my body's rhythm and giving it what it needed at the right time. A lot of people think that drinking more water is always better. And while hydration is essential, there's a point where more isn't better, especially in the hours before bed. Learning to balance hydration with timing is one of the smartest things you can do for your bladder, your sleep, and your overall energy levels. One last thing to note, it's not just what's in your cup, but also the temperature. Cold drinks can stimulate the bladder more than warm ones, so sipping on something lukewarm or room temperature might be gentler on your system. These little tweaks add up. Ignoring what you drink, or when you drink it, can quietly undermine all the other good habits you're building. So, if you've been doing everything else right but still waking up at night, it's time to re-examine what's in your glass. What I discovered next had nothing to do with food or drink at all, and yet it might be even more powerful than everything I've shared so far. Skipping this next insight won't just hold you back. It could be reinforcing the very problem you're trying to solve, especially if you use screens in the evening or have trouble falling asleep after waking up at night. At this point, I had made big changes to my diet and hydration habits, and the results were real. I was waking up less, sleeping more deeply, and feeling more energized. But something was still off. Some nights I'd fall asleep quickly, only to be startled awake a few hours later with that same frustrating urge. I began to notice a pattern. On nights when I was on my phone or laptop close to bedtime, my sleep felt lighter. That's when I started researching the effects of screen exposure. And what I learned was eye-opening. Many of us associate nighttime wakefulness with physical causes, like a full bladder or discomfort. But what if the issue starts earlier with how your brain and hormones are being influenced by your evening habits? The culprit, in many cases, is blue light, the kind emitted by phones, tablets, TVs, and even energy-efficient LED bulbs. This type of light tells your brain it's still daytime, which delays the natural release of melatonin, the hormone responsible for helping you fall and stay asleep. That's not all. Melatonin doesn't just regulate sleep. It also interacts with another hormone called vasopressin, which plays a crucial role in reducing urine production during sleep. In a properly functioning system, your body produces more vasopressin at night, so you can sleep uninterrupted. But when melatonin release is delayed or suppressed, say because you're staring at your phone in bed, vasopressin production can also drop. That means more urine, more urgency, and more sleep disruption. What struck me most was how invisible this problem is. No one thinks a little screen time before bed is a big deal. After all, it's how most of us unwind. But the physiological impact is real. Even just 30 minutes of exposure to blue light in the hour before bed can push back your body's sleep cycle and alter how it manages fluids overnight. Once I understood this, I made a conscious shift. I started dimming the lights in my home about an hour before bedtime, switching to warm-toned bulbs or using lamps instead of overhead lighting. I set a digital curfew, no screens after 9 p.m., and replaced that time with calming activities like reading a physical book, stretching, or listening to soothing music. One of the simplest but most effective changes? Using a sleep mask. Blocking out ambient light helped my brain stay in a deeper sleep state. I also invested in blackout curtains and avoided turning on any lights during nighttime bathroom visits. The goal was to preserve melatonin and vasopressin balance throughout the entire night. It took some discipline at first. We're conditioned to reach for our phones whenever we're bored or winding down. But within just a few nights, the difference in sleep quality was undeniable. Not only did I fall asleep more easily, but I stayed asleep longer. And when I did wake up, far less frequently, it was easier to return to sleep. These changes might sound small, even obvious, but in a world flooded with information and distractions, simple consistency can be revolutionary. When your body knows it's time to sleep, everything aligns. Hormones, bladder activity, digestion, it all settles into a quieter rhythm. Ignoring the influence of light exposure, especially in the digital age, is a major oversight. It doesn't just impact how quickly you fall asleep, it affects the entire architecture of your rest. And for those dealing with nocturia, that disruption in hormonal rhythm could be the silent driver behind your symptoms. Understanding and respecting your body's internal clock isn't about perfection. It's about setting yourself up for success by reducing the noise, both literal and hormonal, that keeps your system out of sync. You deserve restful sleep, but that rest starts long before your head hits the pillow. The next shift I made was both physical and behavioral. It was something I had done my whole life without questioning, until I discovered how it was quietly undoing all my progress. Not changing it won't just hold you back. It might create a cycle of dependence that makes it harder to sleep naturally, even if everything else is in place. Changing my relationship with screens was a turning point, but there was still one more layer I hadn't addressed: the way I prepared for sleep itself. It wasn't until I completely shifted my nighttime routine that I realized how much my body had been begging for predictability and calm. You see, for most of my life, I approached bedtime like flipping a switch. 1 minute I was moving, talking, doing, and the next I expected my body to shut down, fall asleep, and stay asleep. But that abrupt transition was doing more harm than I thought. Our bodies thrive on rhythm and routine. Just as children need a wind-down period before sleep, so do adults, though we often ignore it. When I began treating my evenings not as leftover hours, but as a vital part of my wellness cycle, everything began to change. Instead of rushing through the night and hoping for sleep, I created a structured, calming transition. It started with consistency. Going to bed at the same time every night, even on weekends, helped retrain my internal clock. I also committed to eating dinner at least 3 hours before lying down. This gave my body time to digest, stabilize blood sugar, and reduce overnight metabolic stress, which often plays a silent role in waking up during the night. Then came the physical rituals. I replaced rushing with rhythm. Each evening, I began a short routine: dimming lights, turning on a calming playlist with nature sounds or soft instrumental music, and preparing a warm, non-diuretic herbal tea like chamomile or roasted barley. I also added a warm shower about an hour before bed. That single change had a profound effect. The rise and then fall in body temperature mimicked a natural sleep signal, helping me relax both mentally and physically. After the shower, I applied a few drops of diluted lavender oil to my neck and wrists. Not for fragrance, for effect. Lavender has been shown in multiple studies to reduce anxiety and improve sleep quality. For me, it became a scent my body began to associate with rest. This kind of sensory cueing turned out to be more powerful than I expected. Breathing exercises were another tool I added. Just 3 minutes of slow, deliberate breathing, inhaling for 4 counts, holding for 4, exhaling for 6, was enough to lower my heart rate and ease me into a restful state. It wasn't a magic fix, but it was like telling my body every night that it was safe to let go. These habits took time to build, but they created a protective rhythm. When I followed them consistently, my sleep felt anchored, less fragile, less easily disturbed. My bladder followed suit. On nights when I honored my full wind-down process, I rarely woke up. And if I did, I could fall back asleep without the same restless tossing. What struck me most was how these changes rippled into other parts of my life. I woke up clearer, with more patience and energy. My stress during the day reduced. It was as if improving my nights improved my days, and the cycle became self-reinforcing. I used to think routines were rigid, maybe even boring. But I learned that when designed with care, they can be deeply freeing. You don't have to overthink it. Just pick 3 calming actions and do them in the same order each night. This creates a neurological rhythm that the brain begins to recognize as a cue for sleep. Over time, your body begins to anticipate rest, and that anticipation alone can improve both sleep latency and depth. There's one more change I made, though, that brought everything together. It's the simplest, but also the most easily overlooked, and without it, the body continues to struggle, no matter how well the rest of your routine is built. Failing to address this last habit won't just prevent progress. It could actually undo the gains you've made so far, especially if you've unknowingly made it part of your nightly ritual. There was one final habit I had to confront, one that had followed me into adulthood, disguised as comfort, reward, or sometimes even a form of self-care. For years, I ended my nights with something sweet. A cookie here, a handful of granola there, or a small bowl of yogurt with honey. It seemed innocent. After all, I wasn't overeating, and many of these snacks were healthy by conventional standards. But I had no idea how much this bedtime ritual was affecting my nights. It wasn't just about sugar, though, let's be clear, sugar alone can absolutely disrupt sleep. It triggers a spike in blood glucose, followed by a crash which the body interprets as stress. That alone can wake you up. But the real issue was how that late-night treat was setting off a hormonal chain reaction that affected my bladder function in subtle but serious ways. When you eat late at night, especially simple carbohydrates or sweetened foods, you stimulate insulin production. Insulin doesn't just manage blood sugar, it also impacts other systems, including how your kidneys manage fluid. Elevated insulin can lead to an increase in sodium retention and, ironically, more fluid buildup that the body then tries to eliminate during the night. So instead of helping me wind down, my sweet habit was keeping my system in a mild state of alert. My heart rate was slightly elevated, my digestion continued later into the night, and my body never fully transitioned into the deep rest it needed. This explained why I'd wake up not just to use the bathroom, but feeling oddly restless and tense, like I had never fully relaxed. The solution wasn't just to eliminate the snack, it was to replace it with something that supported the body's transition into rest. That's when I discovered a blend that changed everything for me. Chamomile tea with a teaspoon of ground pumpkin seeds. It might sound strange, but pumpkin seeds are rich in tryptophan, magnesium, and zinc, all nutrients that support relaxation, hormone balance, and even prostate and bladder health. Combined with the calming properties of chamomile, this simple drink became my new nighttime ritual. To prepare it correctly, I use 1 tablespoon of dried chamomile flowers, or 1 tea bag, steeped in hot water for 5 to 7 minutes. While it steeps, I lightly toast 1 tablespoon of raw pumpkin seeds in a dry pan for just a minute or two. Not enough to brown them, just enough to warm their oils. Then I grind them gently and stir them into the tea. I don't sweeten it. The natural nuttiness blends perfectly with the herbal notes. And more importantly, it doesn't spike blood sugar. I drink it about 45 minutes before bed as part of my routine. The results were almost immediate. Not only did I sleep more soundly, but I stayed asleep. And over time, I noticed my entire nervous system felt calmer in the evenings. It was as if this simple act signaled to my body, it's time to rest, deeply and fully. I've learned that sometimes we don't need a full medical overhaul. We need to remove what doesn't serve us and replace it with what does, with intention, consistency, and care. It's incredible how something as small as skipping a snack or choosing the right kind of tea can restore balance to systems that have been out of sync for years. There's power in knowledge, and even more in action. Every small step matters. Every conscious choice builds momentum. If you've made it this far, you've already shown that you're committed to your well-being, and that commitment will pay off in the most meaningful way: a night of true, uninterrupted rest. If this journey helped you, imagine who else it could help. Share this message. Like it, save it, or send it to someone who needs it. When we share what works, we become part of a ripple effect, one that makes health and healing more accessible for everyone.